Okay, we are live. We're doing TikTok and Instagram again. So let's hope there are no glitches. I have not done this. I haven't done both in a while because I've been so paranoid of the glitches. But I don't have any I don't have any backup today. So hopefully it'll just work. It'll just go smooth. I'm very excited for today's live. I'm very excited. Today is all about self-sabotage in business. What it is, what it looks like. My computer fan is way too loud for this. Hold on. Why is it doing that? Shush. Shush. It should go off in a minute. Anyways, so we're going to get into self-sabotage in business. If you are joining the live, welcome. If you are not joining the live and you're catching the YouTube replay either, make sure you have a notebook, take a bunch of notes because we have a lot to talk about. Oh, Jesus, I need a new chair. We have a lot to talk about. So, my name is Nikki and I'm an intuition and business vision coach, and this is something that I help my clients through is like self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, when the vision is not like aligning, when things start to feel off, all of these things, right? And if you excuse me for 1 second, I am actually going to move that so that I'm not like looking way far away. Oh, that's so much better. Now the screens are right by each other. Okay. What is self-sabotage in business? Well, what is self-sabotage in general? So in short, like when you have self-sabotage, you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you kind of like find reasons not to do it, right? Like maybe you know exactly what you want to do in business and then you'll find excuses to not get it done. Maybe you continuously like procrastinate, or you overthink on your next move, or you begin to like doubt yourself. Like the moment you get into action, you're like, I'm gonna do this, and then you doubt yourself, right? That is a form of self-sabotage. So there's so many different ways of self-sabotage, or that self-sabotage can creep up in business. And when these things happen, one of two things will happen. We will either move through it, we will, carry on or whatever, we'll move through it and we'll get to the other side. Or we will freeze, pause, think that it's normal, justify it, and then like retreat, right? And actually, I'm gonna turn off this Wi-Fi device also. Okay. And actually like retreat, and then next thing you know, like we are stuck in a cycle. You're stuck in a loop. You are like starting and stopping, right? All of these things. So that is self-sabotage in a nutshell. What we're going to do today is we're going to deep dive into each type of self-sabotage that you have probably seen, that you have probably done yourself, that you've probably been a part of, whatever it is. We're going to deep dive into each one of them, and we're going to talk about where it stems from and exactly like how to move through it, how to overcome it. So the biggest one that I see and that I have been guilty of and I'm still moving through, procrastination, right? Procrastination. But what is like procrastination at the root? So when we think about procrastination, we think about it in terms of putting something off until the very last minute, right? And then when we put it off until the last minute, you probably heard or said yourself like, well, I just work better under pressure. Okay, but why? Why do you work better under pressure? Why are you procrastinating, right? And so we see procrastination like as this top level thing, but there are underlying things beneath it, right? There's certain things that are making you procrastinate, whether it be a belief system, whether it be that you're nervous, that maybe you do work better under pressure, but that's just training. You've trained your nervous system to only move when there is pressure, when there is a dire need, right? And I call this the 11th hour energy. It's like it's the 11th hour and suddenly you have to get everything done. Well, the 11th hour energy is not a sustainable way to run a business, because then you're only moving if there's chaos. You're only moving if there's pressure. And if we want to get into some type of flow state where we can receive downloads and implement, and it's like a communicational thing with, the divine, if you will, then you can't just always be at the 11th hour, because you're going to get this idea, you're not going to implement, and you're going to be in this chaotic energy, and then it's going to go to somebody else. The idea will belong to somebody else, right? And you're going to be like, dang, I had that idea. Why didn't I do it, right? So anyway, so that's going to be one of the overviews that we go over and we'll deep dive into is procrastination. The next one's going to be lack of boundaries. We'll get into where that stems from and how to move through that. And then lack of discipline, right? So those are the top 3 forms of self-sabotage that we're going to deep dive into. So the first one with procrastination. Procrastination can also look like investing in something without implementing. Okay, so you made an investment in your business, right? You invested in a mentor, you invested in a course. You probably have thousands of dollars of courses in your computer, right? You invested in a mentor, you invested in a course, and then you keep putting it off. You keep telling yourself like, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to look at this course tomorrow. I'm going to, do what my coach said tomorrow. I'm going to, whatever it is, right? I'm going to create the product she recommended tomorrow, right? Everything then becomes a tomorrow deal, or everything then becomes a later deal, right? That is a form of procrastination. And then once you've invested, you procrastinated, a lot of the times, like, there's kind of a deadline, and at least if there's not a deadline in what you invested in, you should give yourself a deadline. But any mentor who's been doing this for a while, or any coach who's been doing this for a while, like, they know to put deadlines on certain things. That's why, some things do not have unlimited lifetime access, because they know nobody will get it done, right? That's procrastination. Tweaking offers instead of selling them, right? So you created something and you're like, this is so good, I'm gonna put it out, I can't wait to put it out, right? And then you got a couple more edits to make or something, and you go to sleep. And then the next day you wake up and you're like, well, actually, I need to fix this graphic, or I need to change this verbiage, or I don't like this cover anymore, or I don't like how I said, XYZ, right? And so then you start tweaking the offer, and you are continuously stuck in this state of perfectionism to keep tweaking these offers when you really should just be selling them. That is another part of procrastination, which is a form of self-sabotage. You are sabotaging yourself and your business, and the way that you operate, right? It's all sabotage, because if you continuously are sitting around and tweaking your offers instead of selling them because you're feeling like it's not good enough, and you keep doing that and you keep procrastinating on putting it out there, well, then how are you going to sell anything? And if you're not selling anything, then you're not running the business. You feel me? Like, it is just, you are stuck in a procrastination and perfectionism cycle, which to me, those two go hand in hand, right? If you are perfecting something, that's just a fancy way to say that you're procrastinating it on putting it out there, right? Which is a form of self-sabotage. The next self-sabotage is analysis paralysis. And this goes right with the tweaking the offers, right? And so taking it back to investing without implementing. You invested in a course, you maybe took a peek at it, you never actually implemented what you were supposed to implement. You maybe created one thing that you were taught to create, but you keep tweaking it, and now you're stuck in this, and now you come into analysis paralysis, I like to call it. And so when you're in analysis paralysis, what you are doing is you are continuously overthinking the process, overthinking the product, overthinking whatever it is that you should just be putting out there. And when you have this analysis paralysis, it keeps you stuck in a loop, and being stuck in this loop puts you back into perfectionism, because when you overanalyze something to death, then it suddenly doesn't feel right. I want you to think about if you have ever had to write something, right? You've written an email, you've written a document, whatever it is, right? And then you look at a word, and as you're looking at this word, you're like, did I spell that correctly? And so you go to Google and you're like double checking, or you go to your phone or whatever it is, right? And you're like, let me double check that I spelled this word correctly. And so you see that you spelled the word correctly, and you're like, okay, cool. And then you keep staring at it. You keep staring at this word, and you're like, this still doesn't look right. But you know in your brain, because Google confirmed it, you know that it's right, but you are still telling yourself, because you stared at it for so long, that now the word looks funny. Now it looks off. Now it doesn't look right, even though it is right, and you know in your mind it's right. That's what analysis paralysis is. And that's how analysis paralysis can show up in the business, when you have created something that you know is right, and you know is good, and you know that people need it, but then you stay stuck analyzing it and looking at it over and over and over again. Well, when you do that, now you procrastinated. Now it's going to look funny. It's going to look just as funny as that word that you know is spelled correctly. But it's not that it's wrong. It's that you've stared at it for too long. And once you've analyzed it for too long, that is another form of self-sabotage, because now you yourself did that, and you yourself are not putting it out there because you think it's wrong, even though you know that it's right? This is why I always tell people, like, you need to tune back into what you know. When you tune back into what you know, then you can get out of these cycles, out of these procrastination cycles, out of these perfectionism cycles and tweaking offers all the time, and not implementing and things like that, because you're taking it back to what you know. You know how the word is spelled, and so you know that, and then when you know that, okay, it looks funny, but I know it's right. That's the key. It looks funny, but I know that it's right. I know that it's exactly what it's supposed to be, right? So those are the different ways that procrastination shows up in self-sabotage. And so when we think about procrastination, where does procrastination actually stem from? Like, what is the place? What is the underlying issue that keeps coming up? So it could be a couple of things. Fear of visibility and or success. I did not believe this was a thing. When I was 18 years old, somebody told me, it was like my first sales manager actually, and he was like, you have a fear of success. And I said, what does that even mean? And so it's been an over decade long journey, but it's a real thing. Fear of success is absolutely a real thing, because what happens on the other side of success is there is a transformation that occurs. And when this transformation that occurs, it gets very uncomfortable, because you have to let go of old patterns, old beliefs, sometimes old people, old identities, right? You have to let go of all of these things. And to let go of everything that you knew is intimidating. And so if you're not open to the success, then letting go of all of those things is intimidating. So even though you crave success, you also are holding on to these old beliefs and identities, and that's what makes success scary. That's what brings on a fear of success. And so when you have fear of success, then you're likely to start procrastinating. And the procrastination comes from, damn, when I make it on the other side, like, I'm going to be a whole new person. I'm going to be a brand new person, right? So that's one of the reasons that procrastination shows up. And the rooted issue there is a fear of success. Fear of visibility ties into that a little bit and not a little bit. That made no sense. Fear of visibility ties into that as well, to some degree, is what I was trying to say. And so when we have fear of visibility, we have these conflicting beliefs coming out, right? We want to have the business, and we want to be visible in the business, and we want to promote the business, right? And we want to do all of these things in business. But when we're afraid of being seen, well, then the conflicting belief subconsciously is, I don't necessarily, I want to do this, but I don't want to be seen. Or I want to do this, but, I have a fear that people are going to criticize me, people are going to reject me, people are going to talk about me, right? All of these different things, right? And so when we have a fear of visibility, that's an underlying issue, that's going to show up in a procrastination form of self-sabotage, because the deep-rooted issue is we don't want to be seen. So then we keep putting off our tasks. We keep putting off what it is we're supposed to be doing. We keep putting off things that allow us to be seen, because the underlying thing is that we don't want to be seen, right? And then the last root for this one would be a fear of failure. So if you think of a coin, the two-sided coin, heads is fear of success, tails is fear of failure. They're not that different. But fear of failure is when let's scratch that. To have fear of failure, I always think is interesting, because we like to look at the overnight successes, right? We like to look at the people who it seems like things came to them fairly quickly, things came to them, right away, etc. But we also don't know how long it took them, right? And so their fear of failure really comes from rooted in a fear of judgment, right? Or a fear of being perceived as not good enough. And when we think of it like that, if you have a fear of failure, likely it's something along the lines of, well, if I fail, then people are going to think I wasn't good enough. Or if I fail, people are going to judge me for trying. Or if I fail, people will laugh at me, right? Things like that. And the irony, like I said, is when we see these successes and with these success stories, we actually don't know how many times they failed to get there. I don't know anybody, when you actually sit down and talk to them, who got it right the first time, right? There are, I can't even think of who says it, but there are successful entrepreneurs out there who say like they had to fail numerous amount of times in order to finally succeed. I'm gonna let this airplane go by. While it does that, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Okay, it's almost gone. I let an airplane go by. Okay, so that kind of covers the procrastination piece, which is, putting things off, not implementing, analyzing it to, over analyzing what you're doing, over analyzing the process, waiting for perfectionism, constantly tweaking what you put out and things like that, right? So that is the procrastination side of self-sabotage. The next side of self-sabotage is lack of boundaries. This one is tricky. And I want you to know everything that I'm speaking to is because I've had all of these. Lack of boundaries. So lack of boundaries can look like saying yes to everything, saying yes when you mean no. And this is not just something to be mindful of in your business. This is also something to be mindful of in your day-to-day life surrounding business. And when we think about, saying yes to everything. So if you have specific working hours for your business, right? Let's say let's say you were the 5 to 9 builder and you were like, okay, every night I am going to work on my business from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Or, maybe you're later than that, like me. I'm like 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., right? Those are my hours. And so let's say, sorry, I heard my baby crying. Let's say every single night you're going to do that. And I should say she is with dad. I'm not just like, she's not just crying. Anyways, every single night you're going to work on your business and you have a plan and you're like, okay, I'm going to do XYZ on this day, right? I'm going to schedule my content out on this day, or I'm going to write out my lives on this day, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is you need. I'm going to create a new freebie this day, or I'm going to do my DMs, whatever, right? You have your hours. And then somebody asks if you can do something for them, right? Like, oh, can you come and, I don't know. What do people ask? I don't go anywhere. But somebody asks like, hey, you want to go to dinner? Or, hey, you want to, can I come over? Or whatever, right? And you say yes. But inside you're like, I don't want anybody over. I want to be able to focus. I don't want to go anywhere, etc., etc. But you start saying yes to everything. You start saying yes in life. And then you also say yes in your business. And you say yes to these things. And in saying yes to these things, you now lack boundaries. And your lack of boundaries is a form of self-sabotage, because subconsciously what you're doing is telling yourself that this is not a priority. This is not something that I value. This is not something that I respect enough to get done. I'm not respecting my time enough to tell these people no, right? The same thing goes when it comes to even your clients, right? Even the people that you work with in business. You still need to have boundaries, right? If you have, your office hours and you are constantly, I'm not talking about the one-off, because I know sometimes I'll do the one-off late night because I'll get inspired. But if you are constantly, responding to clients after hours, or responding to your emails after hours, or doing all of these things, or, responding to, client requests at 11 o'clock at night, when that is like a business working hour for you, well, that's a lack of a boundary. Those are not the hours for that. And so again, you are telling yourself subconsciously that this does not, matter. Excuse me one second. That it does not matter. And that that the business is not a priority, right? Taking it next, not writing down tasks. Once you have your vision, your business vision, and you know what you're supposed to do to get there, mapping out your tasks, writing them down so you don't forget. If you are constantly in this loop of, oh, I was supposed to do this and I forgot. Oh, I was supposed to do this and I forgot. Oh, back to that 11th hour energy, like, oh my gosh, it's 11:59 and I haven't gone live or whatever it is, right? And you continuously do that, and you are not writing down what it is you're supposed to be doing, what it is you need to be doing, all of the things like that, well, then again, like, that is another form of self-sabotage. You don't even have the boundaries within yourself to be able to stay on track to what it is you're supposed to be doing by writing down the tasks, by, reminding yourself on pen to paper of what it is that needs to get done, right? You have no boundaries within. And because you're not doing that, now you're probably more inclined to say yes to everything because you completely forgot what it is you were supposed to be doing. There's no structure. There's no order. You're just willy-nilly, hoping that you remember everything you're supposed to do. That is a lack of boundary within. That is a form of self-sabotage. You are sabotaging your business by yourself. Nobody's doing that for you. That is all on you. Not prioritizing your strategy, which takes it back to investing without implementing. You probably paid for a strategy when you invested also. And so you have this strategy, you know what you're supposed to be doing, and then you don't prioritize it. You now are, again, going back to saying yes to everything. You are, there's no boundary when it comes to the strategy. You have the strategy, and then you let other things get in the way. You let lack of boundaries take over, and so your strategy then becomes non-existent. It becomes, something on the back end. It becomes not the priority that it needs to be. And then you're wondering why things aren't moving forward. Well, they're not moving forward because you're not prioritizing the strategy, because you're self-sabotaging your entire business. Which ties all in to treating the business like a hobby. When you treat it like a hobby, it's very easy to not prioritize your tasks, not write down your tasks, not prioritize your strategy, to say yes to everything and everyone when you should be saying no, right? Because you treat the business like a hobby, there are no boundaries around the business, and then it starts to feel like the business is not growing, right? And so what do lack of boundaries stem from? Now that we've, dove into what lack of boundaries are, what do they stem from? Lack of boundaries often stem from people pleasing. That's what I have found. People pleasing, peacekeeping, right? Things like that. And so when we have lack of boundaries in business and we are worried about what other people are going to think, well, then we are likely to say yes to everything. And have, when you say yes, even when we mean no, because we don't want to upset somebody, which is also like peacekeeping. If you grew up in a household where you were constantly keeping the peace, well, then that could be showing up in your business as peacekeeping tendencies through a lack of boundaries, right? And so, again, we have to restructure the belief systems around people pleasing and keeping the peace so that we can build stronger boundaries, because when we have stronger boundaries, then we will have a stronger business. But it all ties into those underlying beliefs. And then the last piece of self-sabotage is a lack of discipline, right? Which I'm going to just tell you that one stems from a lack of trust. We'll get into that part. But lack of discipline to lack of trust. And so that can look like starting and stopping. You have this idea. You have this pull, you have this desire, you have this vision, right, to do something, and you start it, and then the moment it gets hard, the moment it gets uncomfortable, the moment it's not rainbows and butterflies, you stop. The moment you're about to the moment you are about to break through, the moment you are about to come out on the other side, you stop. You panic and you stop, right? That is a lack of trust. That is lack of trust mixed with some procrastination. But overall, that is a lack of trust. You either don't trust yourself on the other side, you don't trust yourself to see it through, you don't trust yourself to remain uncomfortable enough to shed these old identities, and so you stop, you freeze like a deer in headlights, and you turn around and you go back to what's familiar and what's comfortable. Seeking validation in the business. Seeking validation can look like, I have this idea, let me tell my friend. I have this thing I want to do. Let me text my friend real quick and make sure it's okay. I have I got this download and I want to, I want to implement it, but I'm a run it by my coach, right? I want to make sure that they think it's a good idea too. I want to make sure that they think it's cool. I want to make sure, like, I want to, and that we don't even think of it like that. We're not even consciously like, I want to make sure they think it's good. What we consciously tell ourselves is, I want to see what they think. But what we're subconsciously telling ourselves is, I want them to validate me that this is a great idea so that I can move forward with it. But that again stems from a lack of trust within the business, because if you are seeking the validation, then in seeking the validation, you don't trust yourself enough to do what you were called to do and put out what you were called to put out, right? And so that's what seeking validation looks like. Seeking validation goes hand in hand with asking for permission. I had that revelation actually not that long ago, that subconsciously I was still asking for permission. If you are the CEO, who are you asking permission from? Really? Who are you asking permission from? Asking for permission can look like running it by your coach, running everything by your mentor. Not, you're tuned into an idea and then you want to make sure that that somebody else is going to approve it, that somebody you respect is going to approve it, right? So asking for permission can be a friend. You can easily text a friend, and that's like the same thing as seeking validation. But on a higher up thing, that it can also be like, let me look to my mentor first. Let me see what she thinks. Let me get the feel good from her before I move forward. But if you're constantly looking for the feel good in the business, then you're not tuned in to what you're supposed to be doing in the business. And that again is a form of self-sabotage. Because what are you going to do if she says she doesn't like it? You're just not going to put it out there. Well, now you're disobeying your intuition. Now you're not even listening to what it is you're supposed to be doing. I don't like every single thing that the people I respect put out, and that's fine. I still respect them. I'll still spend money on them. You know what I mean? I'll still make investments with them, but I don't necessarily like every single thing that they do. Not every single thing that they do is for me. And so I want you to remember that when you're running your business, not every single thing that you do is going to be for everybody, but to try to continue to make everything for everybody is going to put you right in a state of self-sabotage and, have you continuously second guessing, which then ties back to starting and stopping, which then ties back to analysis paralysis, right? All of these self-sabotage traits come together into one, because what is happening really is we are finding any subconscious excuse to not move forward. We are finding our subconscious, the old beliefs, right? Not the intuition that wants you to move forward, but the old beliefs are going to try to find any little thing to make you not move forward, because where you are right now is comfortable. Where you are right now feels good. Feeling good doesn't always, feeling good doesn't really feel good. You get what I'm saying? Feeling good for the sake of clinging on to old beliefs and clinging on to old identities does not feel good for the longevity. It's going to get super uncomfortable, and when it does, then you're going to be forced to go forward, right? You're gonna be forced to go through the uncomfortable transformation anyways, and so you might as well just start with the uncomfortable transformation and move forward that way. So to wrap it all up, these are all of the ways that self-sabotage shows up in business. So what we talked about was procrastination, lack of boundaries, and lack of discipline/trust. Procrastination can also look like perfectionism, which then ties into looking like analysis paralysis, constantly tweaking offers instead of selling them, constantly, being hyper focused on a little detail that really isn't that important at the end of the day, investing without implementing. You make these investments and they sit on your computer, they sit on your hard drive, you don't actually do anything with them, right? Lack of boundaries looks like saying yes to everything. It looks like not writing down your tasks for what you are supposed to be doing. It looks like not getting organized, right? And when you get organized, sticking to the structure, sticking to the system that you put in place for yourself, right? It looks like not prioritizing your strategy, which could also be the strategy that you invested in that you're not even utilizing, right? Those are lack of boundaries. Treating the business like a hobby, that is a boundary issue, which stems from people pleasing and peacekeeping. Keeping the peace around you does not keep the peace within you. You have to find a way to keep the peace within you, even if it disrupts the peace around you. The people will adapt. They can adapt or they can be gone. Like, it's that simple, right? Like, but you deserve to have the peace within you, and the peace within you is what's going to move the business forward. And the last thing is the lack of trust, lack of discipline, which is the starting and stopping, the continuously seeking the validation. What do you think of this? Do you think this is a good idea? Hey, I'm going to create this. What do you think? Right? Things like that. That's seeking validation. Asking for permission is the same as seeking validation, but sometimes in my brain, the way that works is it sometimes goes a little bit, a little bit higher up. So those are all the ways self-sabotage shows up in business. I am going to upload this to my YouTube, same username, Nikki Lynn, I think there's a dot, Nikki Lynn Creative, Nikki Lynn Creative, I'll link it. The link is in my bio to my YouTube. You can grab my free business vision meditation. This helps you to tune into what your business vision is so that you can uncover like what it is you need to release, as well as what it is you need to be doing to move forward in business. To take it a step further than that, I have an intuitive business vision training, right? And so I walk you through how to create a business vision that is intuitively aligned so that you can stay the course the whole time, right? We're talking longevity here. So you can grab that at the link in my bio. I am a writer. There are some journal prompts in there for business owners. So take a look at those. But definitely, if you were tuned into this live and into this video, grab the free business vision meditation so that you can see what it is you're supposed to be doing. And now that you know all about self-sabotaging patterns, you'll be able to catch them and stop them. I will see you guys tomorrow in the next live. I don't know the topic. We will figure that out tonight. But in the meantime, have a wonderful day. Bye.